Layoffs are expected to skyrocket for the year 2024, and experts are already predicting that things will get pretty ugly very soon. We've seen layoffs with companies that we never thought would ever shed any weight. You know what I mean? We've seen it with UPS, Google, Meta, Amazon, Nike, and even banks across the nation. Now, the fear is that not only will it make things worse for many Americans, but it may rain on the Federal Reserve's parade amidst what they're predicting to be a soft landing for the economy. However, some experts, even normal everyday Americans, they argue that the economy is nowhere near where they think it is. In fact, a lot of people feel as if we're headed for the deep end.
Before you get into the balloons, the streamers, and the party horns, this economy is not a great economy. It really isn't. Yes, we had nice growth this last year. Yes, inflation did come down. But the stock market today is at the same level in real terms as it was in March of 21. The participation rate is 62.5%, which is really, really low. It was like 67% when Clinton left office. Our GDP growth is not caught up to what it was pre-pandemic. And the worst one of all, life expectancy, is down about 3 years, which is really bad when you're 83 like I am. I really count on that life expectancy not going down. I want it up. But, look, this economy is not in good shape. It really isn't. The only thing that's really doing well is immigration, and it's hitting new highs every day. We must be attracting people really well with our economy. No, seriously, this is not a great economy. 3.1% growth, given the pandemic and given what had happened, is not great. Now, I don't do the forecasting like you guys do, and I probably would be worse than any of you. But it's really a secular problem we have here in the U.S., and that secular problem is not improving. And that's why everyone, and I mean literally everyone, look at median household income if you want to see something terrible.
Well, let me raise
what
that.
you guys did in the Trump administration, it went way up and then came way back down again.
Do you agree with him? Now, some experts are saying that we are in for a hard landing, with some Americans that will be affected worse than others. You see, it's predicted that unemployment will reach either 6 or 7% by the end of the year. Now, you might think that that's pretty high. However, some analysts believe that it could be way higher than that. Related to this, experts are predicting that the odds of a recession happening for this year has spiked to 75%. Well, that's not good news, is it? Some say that it's hard to believe that things are actually going well, especially as even big names are starting to cut off more fat throughout this year. UPS announced 12,000 layoffs recently.
UPS announced Tuesday it will lay off 12,000 employees. That's about 2% of its workforce, according to figures from the Wall Street Journal. The Journal reports most of the layoffs will affect individuals in contract and management roles. UPS joins several high-profile companies that have recently announced layoffs, among them Xerox, Wayfair, and Amazon. Amazon and UPS are also among companies mandating office employees to return to in-person work. To understand these events in the context of the labor market, we've asked Guy Berger to join us. He's the Director of Economic Research at Burning Glass Institute, which focuses on policy and research related to American workers. So, Guy, how should we think about these layoffs at these big companies, names people know? Seems like big numbers, but the unemployment rate is 3.7%, which is low. How should we think about these?
Well, John, I think the main thing to remember to start with is the U.S. economy is really big. The flows are enormous. 2023 was the year with the third lowest layoffs on record, and we still had 1.5 million layoffs a month, almost 20 million for the whole year. So within that context, these numbers alone are high profile, but they're small. And I think the question, which we haven't seen it materialize, is whether these sort of drip of high profile layoffs start adding up to a bigger wave of layoffs, but we don't see it yet.
And I just found out that PayPal is also cutting 9% of its workforce, or around 2,500 employees.
PayPal is letting nearly 10% of its staff go. The company sent a letter to employees saying it needs to be more efficient, use automation, and, quote, consolidate our technology.
The cuts are expected to affect both existing roles and even jobs that they have listed and plan to hire for. But for sure, the economy is still great. Right? Now, I understand that technology has gone a long way, but I just can't help but to be a little bit skeptical when you mix people's money with artificial intelligence. Which brings me to Keenan and Associates, a California-based insurance broker that recently notified 1.5 million of its customers that their personal information has been compromised by hackers. What did they get? Well, they kind of got your full name, your birthday, your social security number, passport, driver's license number, health insurance, and even general health information. This kind of cyber attack, cybersecurity breach opens the possibility of identity identity theft, financial fraud, phishing attacks, and even health insurance fraud. Stuff that none of us want to be victims of. The company, though, has said that they're implementing measures to enhance security in order to protect their networks, but that doesn't mean that they're going to be able to take back what's already been taken. Now, you and I know that we're living in some very challenging times where every dollar counts for many Americans, especially those that are paying for rent. Unsurprisingly, it's now come out that half of renters right here in the country, they're now paying more in rent than they can afford. That's 50%, folks. But do you know what we're being told? This is good news. Why? Well, the median asking rent was calculated at $1,713, down a whopping $4 from November last year, and down $63 from July 2022.
According to a newly released Harvard study, 12 million Americans spent over half their paychecks on rent and utilities, putting them into the financial category that researchers call severely cost-burdened. McElroy says his rent keeps increasing.
Well, they go up like 25 to some people 75.
Hope, however, could be on the horizon for the state of Florida, and specifically Jacksonville, with newly released data from economists at Florida Atlantic University.
Jacksonville's heading in the right way.
Real estate economist Ken H. Johnson says despite the national numbers, data from Jacksonville shows the rent prices are either leveling off or declining. Just a bit.
Now, you might think that this is great, but when you remember that the median rent is still $309 higher than the same time last, 2019, then you would realize that we're still facing a 22% increase compared to back then. Now, some experts are saying that we're bound to see more homeless Americans for 2024, a very ugly truth that will hit many households this year. Now, speaking of getting hit, Toyota has just issued one of their most startling warnings that I've ever seen with their cars. They're actually telling people to stop driving specific vehicles that they've sold.
A dire recall notice this morning for owners of certain older model Toyotas. The automaker says airbags in about 50,000 Corollas and RAV4s from the early 2000s could explode. Sharp metal fragments could seriously injure or even kill drivers and passengers. Toyota advises owners to stop driving the vehicles immediately.
Toyota is taking accountability though, and they're repairing these models for free. However, it's still something that's going to affect a lot of people, especially those that have specific models as their daily drivers. From slamming the brakes on cars, let's now talk about how McDonald's is getting slammed for some of their prices. Now, granted, fast food isn't the best food in the world, definitely not. But listen to this. A McDonald's in Connecticut is now making waves for charging more than $7 for an Egg McMuffin and almost $6 for a side of hash browns. Wow. I mean, if it's that high, just don't buy there. I mean, it's that simple. But that is definitely a bit steep. Now, if you wanted the Egg McMuffin meal, that would set you back $17.63. That's an Egg McMuffin, a hash brown, and a small coffee. You got to be out of your mind. But of course, we cannot gloss over the fact that this was a McDonald's that was located in a rest stop, meaning that the prices here are very different than what you would see in a local McDonald's. That and their business model allows franchisees to set their own prices. I guess it's kind of like how expensive any kind of fast food would be inside of an airport, but whatever. But what do you guys think about all this? Costs keep going up, and with what experts have predicted for 2024, things may become even worse for many of us. Now, before I go, I just want to thank you guys so much for being here. Appreciate you guys. Thanks for always hitting the like button. Thank you for sharing these videos. Thank you for subscribing, and I'll see you on the next one.